We were all young once, and whilst the youth of today waste their gaming time on terrible iPad games and mobile apps, I, on the other hand, enjoyed something much more sophisticated. Going to the arcade was an event to cherish, rather than a poorly timed in-app purchase. So join me whilst we go back in time and look at some of the best cabinets the arcade had to offer. Yeah! In my very early years, like most British children, rather than a games console, I owned a microcomputer. The one in my household was the Amstrad CPC 464. As fun as this was, it absolutely palled in comparison to an evening out in the arcades with my parents. Dimly lit rooms combined with flickering screens and different music come from all directions is the definition of nostalgia to me. Let's fast forward to Christmas 1999. I have a Dreamcast and I am playing the now cult classic Shenmue. The game is set in 1986, the year I was born. This was the first game I ever come across in which was set within the recent past and featured nostalgic throwbacks to the 80s. A bit weird when you think about it, setting a game 13 years in the past. It would be like making a game now and setting it in 2003. You see how weird a concept that is? You could loosely argue that Shenmue pioneered 80s nostalgia, and no moment in the game reminded me more of my early years than when I entered the game's arcade. This arcade was just like the ones I used to frequent with my parents on holidays in Greece in my early existence. From the small scale to the music and sound effects, this was nostalgia personified. Within this virtual arcade, you can play darts, do quick time events involving punching things, but most notable of all, you can play on various arcade cabinets. For me personally, the cabinet in the game that stood out the most was Space Harrier. I reckon I may have sunk as much time into playing Space Harrier within Shenmue as I did playing Shenmue itself. For those that have lived under a rock, Space Harrier is a 1985 classic arcade shooter from Sega. It's a game that pioneered a 3D perspective years before such a thing was really technically possible, and placed you in command of a flight-capable blonde-haired hero who carries a massive bloody bazooka. This Aryan hero is clearly a homage to Luke Skywalker, who was popularised a few years earlier. The game is from a third-person perspective, and the camera is placed behind a playable character's back. You must duck, dodge and weave around the screen in all directions as you constantly race towards the horizon. This must all be done whilst you dodge wave after wave of enemies and environmental obstacles in which are all trying to put a stop to your progress. The game was ported to home consoles such as the Master System and Mega Drive, however both versions were inferior to the arcade counterpart. It was a decent effort by Sega, but the console ports were no way the perfect preservation of the arcade experience, even if the marketing materials of the era was happy to claim they did. If you want to play this game outside of a real arcade, one of the best ways to play today is still with the arcade in the Shenmue game. Within Shenmue, you get the complete arcade original, uncompromised in content, length and visuals, including all 18 of the full stages. There are a number of great ports in the modern age, so you can experience Space Harrier. However, until this week when I finally got to play on an actual Space Harrier cabinet in real life, I never realised these ports were all missing one huge key ingredient, which makes this game even more fun in the arcade. Have a look at this video of me playing Space Harrier in the arcade. I went into this situation completely blind, expecting a similar experience to that of which I got when playing the game in Shenmue. But then, something amazing happened. Look at the shock and joy in my face. The game is also a bloody simulator. If you fly up, the seat makes you feel like you're going up. If you go down, the seat goes down, and the same applies if you go left and right. I really cannot express how fun this was, and I am surprised we have never received anything like this in the living room. This is a game from 1985, and I was experiencing immersion levels unlike that of which I have received really in any games today. What a treat it was to play this game in an arcade, and a memory that will now stick with me forever, way after my visit to this place. I had so much fun with the Space Harrier arcade cabinet that I have now made it one of my life goals to own one, so I can experience this fun in my living room whenever I please. I do not care if I have to scour the whole globe to get one, but I will find one and make it my own. Space Harrier, you will be mine. Oh yes, you will be mine. Cheerio!